Faturday Omaha.
Eat this.
Hey everybody, welcome to this very first episode of Faturday Morsels, featuring your Faturday Omaha host today, Dave. And this is going to be a little bit different than our standard Faturday Omaha podcast, where we get a giant meal at a restaurant and tell you all about the mega foods we got and the interesting foods we got. Well, these are going to be interesting too, except it's going to be a little bit shorter. That's why it's a morsel. These are going to be places where we went to for fact-finding, or maybe a coffee shop where we're not going to order a 4-course meal because you can't. It's a coffee shop. But we want to tell you about these cool places that we go to. In this case, I went to Shandy's Swedish bakery, and I found this place by looking around on social media, and there were these pictures of these little bundt cakes that looked really interesting. So I'm like, maybe this is a place I need to go check out. So that was the start of my Faturday journey this last Faturday. And I drove out to the Millard area. I had Googled their address, which is 13811 T Plaza, and it showed that it was close to the Amazing Pizza Machine, which is roughly 144th and Q. So I'm like, well, that's a good landmark. I will take myself out there and I will go get some baked goods. So I pull into the plaza where the Amazing Pizza Machine is, and Shandy's Bakery isn't in that plaza. Pay attention to your maps a little closer than I did. It is indeed at 13811 T Plaza, which comes after Q Street, because that's how the alphabet works. So I rerouted a little bit to 138th Street, headed south, and found them. They're in a 4-bay strip mall type brick building. They have a quite hilly parking lot, so make sure you put your parking brake on when you're ready to go get your baked goods, and then saunter on in the door. Once you're in there, you will be greeted by the Baked Good Welcoming Committee, which happens to be some really nicely organized shelves that then have cookies and breads and cakes and all this different stuff on there for you to look at. But if you look straight forward, you'll see the baking area, and if you're lucky, you will see Shandy herself, which is what I saw. She was in there prepping the very almond cake that I had come in there to get in the first place. So we had a real nice conversation, and before I purchased my baked goods, she had to finish making them because she was making them fresh right there. In fact, she said she was, quote, beating the crap out of the chocolate, because that's what she needed to do. So she must have been tempering it or whatever she needed to do to get it to the right consistency and chocolate performance level for these almond bundt cakes. So the cakes were all laid out there, and she, after making the chocolate, was then hand dipping just the top of them. Only about the half of them is covered, and getting them ready to go for the day and for my eventual purchase. So Shandy talked to me a little bit about these almond cakes and how they were a challenge to a franchise in town that also makes bundt cakes, and these have gotten a lot of traction for her recently. In addition to that, she kind of told me a little bit about the bakery itself. They just celebrated their first year anniversary as a brick and mortar shop, and she had been selling goods at the farmer's market before she actually established the brick and mortar store. So happy anniversary, Shandy, on the 1-year anniversary of your shop. In addition to this, she was telling me about the other things in the shop, the Swedish Sweet Rye Bread, which is there, a little different item. So I decided to get that too. And I also picked up some cinnamon rolls. They had these little cinnamon rolls. They're in a pan of various sizes. I think there was like a 4-pack, and I got like a 6 or 8-pack, and they had an even bigger one. So what's kind of nice about this is I, of course, got the little almond bundt cakes, the Scandinavian almond cakes. You can buy the Scandinavian almond cake in a large loaf, or the smaller bundt version with a chocolate topper. And she also makes these in different flavors. In fact, I just saw a post today about a German chocolate version of this little bundt cake. So what's kind of cool is, like, I've got, things that I'm familiar with, cinnamon rolls. I've got something new, the almond cake, but in a familiar form, the bundt cake. And then kind of a blend, the Swedish rye bread. Well, I've certainly had rye bread before, but not Swedish rye bread. And this is a Sweet Rye Bread. So that's a little different. So say Swedish Sweet Rye Bread several times fast as you order this. So how did this stuff taste? Well, let's talk about the rye bread real quick. So it was indeed sweet, but not sickly sweet. When I was talking to Shandy about it, she said that people, can just eat it. They could eat it plain, or you can even make, say, French toast out of it. I tried it straight up with my dinner that evening, and I also tried it with some butter, and I really kind of like it in both scenarios. The fact that it's sweet makes it a little different, but it's not too sweet. Molasses, I believe, gives it its signature flavor, and Shandy said that the Swedish community cannot live without this bread. So, Shandy, thank you for providing that for the Swedish community. As a non-Swede, I have not had this before, but would definitely welcome it again. So how about the cinnamon rolls? Well, these were kind of little guys. You could definitely snack on maybe 2 of these, or 4, or 6, depending on how hungry you are. They're not the giant, fluffy, plate-sized cinnamon rolls that you might get in other areas. They're a little smaller, a little shorter, and they have a cream cheese frosting. And faithful listeners of the podcast, you might be like, Dave, I thought you didn't like cream cheese. Well, I don't. I prefer a whipped frosting. However, it works on these things. Shandy recommended heating these things up. I would as well, as I would with most cinnamon rolls, because cinnamon rolls are better hot. What? Fight me. They're better warm. Come on, people. It works just fine. Heat these guys up for maybe 15, 20 seconds max. Don't cook them too long, otherwise they'll turn into a brick of cinnamon roll, and you don't want that. But they heat up nicely. They have these guys have a toothsome bite to them. I like it. There's not a ton of cinnamon and sugar. There's a good cinnamon flavor. The cream cheese frosting mixes in nicely. And frankly, they're just kind of fun to eat. In fact, the cinnamon roll flavor kind of reminds me of the cinnamon rolls my grandmother used to make, which is definitely a good thing. So how about these little Scandinavian almond cakes? Crack cake, as Shandy called it. Bundt cake, almond bundt cake, Scandinavian almond crack bundt cake, covered in chocolate, half covered in chocolate, so that way you can actually get some of the cake, which has a little denser crumb, and then also you can get the chocolate. You can choose you want to bite with chocolate, without, or blended. Kind of do whatever you want. The nice part is this chocolate is a little darker style chocolate. It's a very tasty chocolate, so a good mix with the almond flavor. And this almond, it gives you that kind of feeling that a vanilla cake would, but with almond, because it's almond cake. These little things are fun, and you definitely need to try them when you go to Shandy's. So I got these 3 things. I got the Swedish Sweet Rye Bread, I got the Scandinavian almond bundt cakes, and I got the cinnamon rolls. All 3 of these things were good. So how much is left to try at Shandy's Swedish Bakery? A lot. There's a lot of choices there. There's cookies there. There's this stacked cake, which looks amazing. There's all these things that I haven't tried before, so there's plenty of things for me to go back and get. So how about we wrap this Faturday Morsel up a little bit? Now, on the regularly scheduled podcast, we do the overall review of the restaurant and tell you about our wallet and taste and full factor and the overall Frampton rating. We're going to do this a little bit different since this is a Faturday Morsel. We're going to tell you about the hook and the hint and also kind of summarize this up a little bit. So everything that I had was tasty. I only had 3 things. There's a lot more here to try. There's this tower cake looking thing. There's cookies that I didn't have. There's a lot of stuff here. So, what's the hook? The hook is this is a Swedish bake shop. I'm not Swedish. I've never had this stuff before. There's a whole lot of things here that are new, yet some familiar things like, well, a chocolate chip cookie and some cinnamon rolls. So you can kind of get a blend of things. That's the hook. Now, what's the hint? Well, the hint is don't give up on trying to find the place. It's not super obvious where it's at. It's a little bit south of 138th and Q. GPS that thing, but maybe let the GPS guide you all the way in, or just drive around a little bit, because frankly, that's kind of fun. I am so thankful for the conversation that I had with Shandy, and she told me about everything I wanted to know about baked goods, and I think she'll answer your questions for you too. In fact, I know she will. She has a lot of passion for her business. As we mentioned, they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary, which is super cool. So she's out on her own doing this thing. She does everything in the bake shop. So give Shandy's Swedish Bakery a try. What do you need to get here? Make sure you get those little almond cakes, the little almond bundt cakes, and then grab something else to try. Maybe something familiar, maybe something not so familiar. So that's it for this very first episode of Faturday Morsels with your Faturday Omaha crew, in this case your host Dave, and we will see you next time, and please share this podcast with somebody who's hungry. See you later. Bye-bye.
Faturday Omaha.
Eat this.